on the Mariners Radio Network.
And we welcome you back inside our network studios. Mariners and the Red Sox getting ready. It's Game 4, final game of the series. Mariners a win away from taking 3 of 4 from the kids from Beantown. In the meantime, Mariners Magazine rolls along. Joining me now from the Dave Niehaus Broadcast Center is veteran beat writer with the Tacoma News-Tribune, Larry LaRue. And Larry, always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Thank you.
The book that you have out is chronicling Major League encounters over how many years have you been covering our fine pastime, and what was the motivation to put some of these stories out there and tell some of the stuff that a lot of folks may not see or read in the papers and the blogs on a daily basis?
Well, I've been doing this for 33 years, and basically the book started as something for my daughter. I was writing in a notebook, putting down anecdotes of some of the guys I covered and our personal relationships, some anecdotes stories that were kind of behind the scenes, things that happened in the locker room or off the field. And I thought, it was something she might enjoy at some point. And the more I got into it, the more fun I had with it. And I have a friend who's in the publishing thing, and he looked at the first 30 guys I had and said, give me 100. And since it had taken me about 2 years dinking around to do 30, I was a little nervous about that. But we got the 100 out, and it's called Major League Encounters.
Larry LaRue, the author of the book Major League Encounters, and from the Tacoma News-Tribune with us here on Mariners Magazine. When you're telling these stories, what did you want to kind of, the big picture, put all together? A little bit of humor, a little bit the personal side, the human side of these men. Did you want one kind of thread to prevail among the others?
Just the humanity of these guys. I think from the outside, we think of them only as players with a certain amount of talent or drive. And a lot of times their backstories, how they get to the big leagues, affects them for the rest of their lives. Some have to struggle so hard that they're almost angry about it. And some guys, like Brett Boone, get here. They spent their whole young lives in a clubhouse because their dad played, and they enjoy every moment of it. And in Brett's case, was probably the funniest guy I ever covered. So I tried, to show a lot of different sides to players that maybe the average fan might not know.
And as we take a look at some of the stories, what are a couple that stand out as your absolute favorites, whether it be getting to know the guy and really knowing the context of his personality, his sense of humor, or just a wacky, crazy thing that happened? Do you have a couple that stand out?
Well, yeah, one was early on when I was in Seattle in '89. Harold Reynolds was a second baseman, an all-star, really a nice guy. And I had a friend at the paper whose son was a high school second baseman who'd made an error and lost a championship game. And he asked me on the phone, we were in Baltimore, he asked me from Seattle, can you ask Harold Reynolds what he would say if this was his son? So after the interviews and things in the clubhouse, I went to Harold and I said, this is the situation. What would you tell this kid if you were his dad? And he said, give me his phone number. And I did, and Harold called the kid right then. And, the hardest thing for him to do, he said, was to convince him that it was Harold Reynolds. And he just talked to the kid and told him how he'd lost a high school game as a center fielder. And on the last play, had sat down in center field and started to cry. And he said he was feeling terrible, and he looked up, and there was his mom standing right above him out there to comfort him. And those are the kind of things, you don't expect a major league player to suddenly say, well, give me the phone number of a high school kid. I'll call him and I'll tell him an embarrassing story about me and maybe make him feel a little better. The other guy was Booney, and Booney could make you laugh just by being there. But he entertained the entire clubhouse. I remember one time he was talking about the talent of various positions, and he said shortstop was, without a doubt, the toughest position on the field. And the second toughest was second base, which he happened to play. He said if you were a first or a third baseman, the manager basically wanted you out of the way, so he'd put you at the corners. And all these guys were laughing, of course, as their position came up. And he said outfielders, they put you as far away from home plate as they can because they're not even sure you can stop it if it comes. And Ben Davis was there at the time. He said, what about catchers? He said, catchers are so bad, they have to equip you because they don't think you can stop a ball thrown to you. And it was one of those things that Brett was just riffing off the top of his head. but he had a lot of fun with it. His teammates had a lot of fun with it. He could keep guys loose anytime.
And our pal Mike Blowers is featured.
Yes, he is.
Got some Mike Blowers stories we might be hearing on the radio for the first time? Or reading about for the first time?
Well, the nice thing about Blow was always old school. And I had some issues occasionally with Randy Johnson when he was here. I wrote some things he didn't like. And at one point, he was kind of full of bluster. And he said, I feel like punching you in the nose. And I said, okay, well, go ahead. Let's get it out of the way. And Blowers was nearby and kind of laughed. And Randy didn't hit me, and I, walked away and didn't think too much more about it. And Blowers said, I got your back. And I thought, yeah, right. But Mike was one of those guys that was kind to the media and loved to talk baseball long after games with anyone. And occasionally it would include a writer or two if no one else was around.
Larry LaRue, and you know the name, longtime writer for the Tacoma News, Tribune cover, and the Mariners. Now the book that Larry has out is Major League Encounters. I found it with relative ease on Amazon. Any particular site that you'd like to send folks to with the publisher, or just any other local bookstore?
Well, it's not out in bookstores. We're just doing it online for now. So it's Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. The publisher is ReaderPublishing.com. And they have a couple other books out, and it's an interesting site. So, I'll guide folks there.
Larry, we appreciate it. I look forward to reading it. Sounds like an entertaining read, and I think for a baseball fan, certainly folks up here in Seattle, kind of a can't miss. So we appreciate you giving us the time.
Thank you.
There he goes, Larry LaRue from the Tacoma News Tribune, and the author of the book, one more time, Major League Encounters. And again, I just typed it, Larry LaRue, or type in Major League Encounters, goes right to it on Amazon.com. When we come back, it is the week in review. The Mariners and the Red Sox getting ready for this fourth and final game. Mariners a win away from taking the series. Also some news today. Felix Hernandez selected to the All-Star game, his third selection in his career. He joins only Ken Griffey Jr. and Ichiro with 10, Edgar with 7, Randy Johnson with 5, and Alex Rodriguez with 4. Now the sixth Mariner to have at least 3 All-Star selections in his career, and a roster move just coming down. Once again, Erasmo Ramirez to the 15-day disabled list with a right elbow flexor strain. Josh Kenny, right-handed pitcher, selected from AAA Tacoma, and he wasn't on the 40-man, so to accommodate him, Mariners designated for assignment catcher Adam Moore. Shannon Dreyer will have the breakdown of those roster moves coming up on the pregame show right at noon. But up next, it's the Week in Review. Matt Pittman with you on Mariners Magazine here on the Alaska Airlines Mariners Radio Network.
Interstate 90.